Hello and welcome to True Crime, the Court of Public Opinion. I am your host, Alexis Knight. Here we take a look at criminal cases where the evidence isn't so black and white and the public cannot decide one way or the other, keeping people divided in their strong stance and debating even still today. In this episode, we are going to take a look at the tragic death of Anna Nicole Smith. We're categorizing this under the influence category. Was this exploitation, influence, or just a tragic accident? We're going to get into it. In 2007, the world watched as Anna Nicole Smith, a former Playboy model and reality TV star, was found dead in a Florida home at the age of 39. Her death shocked the public, but perhaps it wasn't entirely unexpected. Anna Nicole's life had been a spectacle, broadcasted for the world to see, from her controversial marriage to an 89-year-old billionaire, to her battles in court over his estate, to her highly publicized struggles with drugs, mental health, and personal relationships. But the real controversy began after her death. Was Anna Nicole simply a troubled woman who succumbed to her own demons? Or was she heavily influenced by those around her? Could the people in her inner circle have played a role in her demise? Well, here we're going to explore the compelling question. Was Anna Nicole Smith's death a tragic accident? Or was it a consequence of the influence exerted on her by those closest to her? Anna Nicole Smith's death left the world with more questions than answers. Was she a victim of those who exploited her vulnerabilities, or was she merely the tragic outcome of her own choices? As we dive into this story, we ask, did Anna Nicole Smith's associates, her lawyer and partner, Howard K. Stern, the doctors who provided her with a cocktail of prescription meds, and even the relentless media, contribute to her untimely death? Or was her demise the inevitable result of a lifestyle marked by high risk, addiction, and the pressures of fame? In this episode, we're going to explore the controversial circumstances surrounding Anna Nicole Smith's death. We will look at the role of those closest to her, examine the impact of the media's portrayal, and I invite you, the listeners, to consider whether Anna Nicole was led down a dangerous path by those she trusted, or was she simply just a tragic figure overwhelmed by her own personal demons. Let's get into it. Anna Nicole Smith, born Vicki Lynn Hogan in 1967 in Texas, started her life in modest circumstances, dreaming of a way to escape. Her journey to fame began in the early 1990s when she posed for Playboy magazine, quickly rising to prominence as Playmate of the Year in 1993. Her striking looks and magnetic presence captivated the public. And soon she became the face of Guess Jeans, cementing her status as a cultural icon of the era. However, this newfound fame was not without its shadows. Even as she basked in the limelight, whispers of instability and erratic behavior began to follow her, hinting at the challenges that lay ahead. Anna Nicole's marriage to J. Howard Marshall, an 89-year-old oil tycoon, in 1994 sparked a media frenzy that would only intensify over the entire next decade. Many believed she married Marshall for his immense fortune, a claim she consistently denied, asserting that their relationship was founded on love, not money. Regardless of her intentions, however, Marshall's death a year later led to a strong and drawn-out legal battle over his estate. For years, Anna fought his family in court, demanding a substantial portion of his wealth. This case drew intense public scrutiny, and it painted her in a negative light, with the media frequently depicting her as a gold digger, a portrayal that would stick with her for the rest of her life. The period of legal turmoil coincided with a growing dependency on prescription drugs and a series of highly publicized personal struggles. In 2002, the Anna Nicole Show aired, a reality television series that gave viewers a raw and unfiltered look at her life. While the show was a ratings hit, it also showcased a woman often appearing disoriented, unpredictable, and under the influence, further feeding public fascination and concern. Meanwhile, her legal battles and increasingly erratic behavior continued to dominate headlines, continuing to paint a portrait of a woman spiraling out of control. The turning point came in 2006 when Anna Nicole faced her most devastating personal tragedy, the death of her 20-year-old son, Daniel, just 3 days after she gives birth to her daughter, Daniel Lynn. Daniel's death is ruled an accidental overdose, and this shattered Anna Nicole. Friends and family reported that she was just never the same after losing him, her son. And she descends further into grief and drug dependency. Now, her partner, Howard K. Stern, he became an even more prominent figure in her life during this time. He's often seen by her side in public and reportedly controlling many aspects of her day-to-day existence. Some people liked that he was there. Some people did not love it so much. What is he doing there? In the moments before her death, Anna Nicole was prescribed a wide array of powerful medications, often in alarmingly large quantities, and by several doctors. These medications included sedatives, anti-anxiety drugs, and painkillers. Her death on February 8th in 2007 in Florida in a hotel room was ultimately ruled an accidental overdose due to combined drug intoxication. The toxicology report revealed there was a lethal mix of at least 9 different prescription meds in her system. 9. This shocking revelation raised questions about the role of her doctors, who were accused of over-prescribing these meds without adequate medical justification, and about Stern, who many believed enabled or even encouraged her addiction. In the wake of her death, a legal and media storm erupted, centering on whether Stern and her doctors were criminally liable. Stern and 2 doctors were eventually charged with conspiracy, but the charges were later dismissed or overturned. The case left a bitter taste in the public's mouth, sparking debates over whether Anna Nicole Smith was an independent woman making her own choices, or a tragic victim manipulated by those around her. Okay, now that we have the fundamental facts, let's explore the opposing arguments surrounding Anna Nicole's death. The prosecution's stance was very clear. Anna Nicole was a victim, not just of her own choices, but of the people around her who, they argued, manipulated and exploited her vulnerabilities for their own gain. Howard K. Stern, her longtime lawyer and companion, was portrayed as the mastermind behind her spiraling decline. Stern was not just a confidant, they argued, but someone who actively encouraged her drug dependency to control her, both emotionally and financially. According to the prosecution, Stern's influence over Anna Nicole extended far beyond the role of a supportive partner. He was accused of using his legal knowledge to obtain medications under false names, creating an environment where her dependency on prescription drugs could flourish, and could flourish unchecked. They pointed to the numerous prescriptions written out in multiple names, the volume and combination of the drugs she was taking, and Stern's role in obtaining them as evidence of a systemic effort to keep her under his control. The prosecution also focused heavily on the doctors who treated Anna Nicole, arguing that they, too, played a direct role in her demise. These doctors, they contended, were more interested in maintaining a celebrity client than in following ethical medical practices. They had prescribed massive quantities of very powerful meds, including the sedatives and painkillers, sometimes without even seeing her in person. In their view, this was not just poor judgment. This was criminal negligence. The prosecution brought in expert witnesses who testified that the drugs prescribed to Anna Nicole were excessive. They were unnecessary, and ultimately they were lethal. Medical records were scrutinized to show that some prescriptions were overlapping. Others contradicted standard medical guidelines, and many were issued without proper medical documentation. For the prosecution, this case was about more than just Anna Nicole Smith. This was about the ethical responsibilities of medical professionals and the dangerous allure of fame. But the defense, they mounted a formidable counter-argument. Howard K. Stern's lawyers argued that he was not a puppet master, but a man deeply in love with Anna Nicole, doing everything he could to support her in the face of overwhelming public scrutiny and personal loss. They presented him as a devoted partner who was not manipulating her, but rather protecting her from the predatory forces surrounding her, from the tabloids to her family's legal battles. Stern's defense insisted that he was following Anna Nicole's wishes and that he did not force her to take drugs, and that any actions he did take, like obtaining prescriptions, they were only done out of a desire to manage her pain and her suffering. To them, Stern was a convenient scapegoat here, made to bear the brunt of public outrage because of his closeness to Anna Nicole and his involvement in her chaotic life. The doctor's defense took a similar stance, arguing that they were only doing their best to provide medical care to a very complex and challenging patient. They claimed that Anna Nicole was in genuine pain, suffering from a host of issues, physical and emotional, that required significant medical intervention. The defense brought forward evidence to suggest that she had sought out multiple doctors because of her legitimate medical needs, and that the prescriptions provided were appropriate given her conditions. They pointed out that many celebrities often receive unconventional treatments because of their unique lifestyles and demands, and Anna Nicole was no different. To them, the criminal charges against these doctors were unfounded, driven by a need to assign blame after a high-profile death, rather than really a reflection of actual wrongdoing. Both sides also argued about the media's role in shaping the public's perception of Anna Nicole and the figures around her. The prosecution suggested that the media's constant scrutiny only intensified Anna Nicole's reliance on those who appeared to support her, no matter how questionable their motives. Meanwhile, the defense argued that this same media portrayal unfairly painted Stern and the doctors as villains, without considering the complex realities they faced in dealing with a high-profile client like Anna. And so we have 3 different points of view here, explaining in 3 different ways why each one is not responsible for Anna Nicole's death. The media played a monumental role, no matter how you look at it, in shaping the public perception of Anna Nicole Smith from the very beginning of her rise to fame all the way until her tragic death. We can never forget about the media because they always follow what they think people are going to want to see. So if you're interested in it, it's going to be there most likely. But what story is it telling you? I mean, from the moment Anna appeared on the cover of Playboy back in the early 1990s, the press fixated on every single aspect of her life: her physical appearance, her relationships, her legal battles, and her erratic behavior. However, it was not just the volume of media coverage that was significant. It was the tone, the framing, and the narratives that various outlets chose to promote. From the outset, the tabloids seemed to position Anna Nicole as a figure of controversy, when she was alternately labeled as a bombshell, a gold digger, and a train wreck. When she was married to the 89-year-old billionaire J. Howard Marshall in 1994, that coverage was relentless, casting her as a young woman who had married for money. Sensational headlines like "Playmate turns gold digger" and "Anna Nicole's sugar daddy saga." These headlines were splashed across supermarket tabloids, and it built a narrative of scandal and opportunism. I mean, even the mainstream outlets like the New York Times and CNN, they devoted significant airtime and column inches to dissecting Anna's motivations and her choices. And oftentimes, they had never even spoken to her. Again, if the media knows you want to know about it, they'll find a way to get it to you any way they see fit. And here's how we see that happening with Anna Nicole. This earlier portrayal of her as a gold digger was complicated by Anna Nicole's own behavior and the rise of that reality television series in the early 2000s about her life. With her reality show, The Anna Nicole Show, airing from 2002 to 2004, the media narrative shifted yet again. This show was a window into her private life and not one of her better times. It was heavily edited to emphasize her eccentricities and often portrayed her as a less than flattering person. Clips of Anna Nicole slurring her speech. She appeared confused on the show. They showed her engaging in strange behavior, and these things were repeatedly aired. People wanted to see this, and it fed into the perception that she was unstable or maybe out of control. Critics of the show argued that it was a form of exploitation, using her vulnerability for entertainment value, while others saw it as a deliberate attempt by Anna Nicole herself to stay relevant in a media landscape increasingly dominated by reality TV. As her personal struggles became more visible, the media narrative would shift again, and this time it would paint Anna Nicole as a tragic figure. Stories of her erratic behavior were accompanied by reports of her prescription drug use, her legal troubles, her battles with depression. I mean, this is everywhere for everyone to see and talk about. Major media outlets, including ABC News and NBC, began to cover her with a mixture of fascination and pity. Some journalists, such as Maureen Orth of Vanity Fair, they wrote detailed exposés that dug into Anna's past. They explored her traumatic experiences and considered them to possibly have led to her downfall. And they wrote and talked about this. These pieces often portrayed her as a woman trapped by circumstances beyond her control. A tragic character, really, in a modern-day drama. However, not all media outlets were quite as sympathetic. Shows like Entertainment Tonight and even TMZ, they continued to capitalize on her downfall with sensational headlines and provocative segments that focused on her most shocking moments. They highlighted her courtroom battles. They highlighted the death of her son Daniel. They highlighted her public appearances where she appeared visibly impaired. For these outlets, Anna Nicole was a figure of spectacle, a woman whose life provided endless fodder for entertainment and gossip. This kind of coverage amplified the idea that Anna Nicole was both a victim and a villain in her own story, a woman who is both at the mercy of those around her and a creator of her own chaos. The media's portrayal of Anna Nicole reached a fever pitch following her death in 2007. Suddenly, she was no longer just a tabloid fixture, but now the subject of a serious legal and ethical debate. News networks like CNN and Fox News devoted hours of programming to the circumstances surrounding her death, featuring panels of experts discussing everything from her toxicology report to the potential criminal charges against her lawyer, Howard K. Stern, and her doctors. Programs like Larry King Live and The Oprah Winfrey Show hosted exclusive interviews with those who had known her, including former lovers, family members, and her closest confidants, each with their own version of the truth. And of course, those documentaries, they soon followed, each offering again a different take on her life and death. The 2009 documentary, Anna Nicole Smith, The Final 24. Now that one presented her as a woman overwhelmed by fame and exploited by those around her. But then in 2012, another one comes out with a different spin. It was called Addicted to Fame. And this one suggested that Anna Nicole was complicit in her own downfall. She was a willing participant in a circus that she herself helped create. These conflicting narratives added layers of complexity to her story, making it difficult for the public to arrive at a single unified conclusion about who Anna Nicole Smith truly was. The media's role in shaping the controversy did not end with her death. In the years that followed, retrospectives, anniversary pieces, and even more documentaries just kept her story alive in the public consciousness. Each new piece of content seemed to ask the same question, though. Was Anna Nicole a victim of a predatory industry and toxic fame, or was she an agent of her own destruction? This ongoing media presence created a feedback loop where public perception just continually shifted based on whatever the latest portrayal of her life was. Ultimately, the media's involvement in Anna Nicole's story serves as a very potent reminder of the power of the narrative. By choosing how to frame her life, whether as a cautionary tale, a tragic figure, or a source of entertainment, the media not only shaped public opinion, but also influenced the legal and the ethical conversations that followed her death. It was the conversations that were started from the media that people were talking about, and it was shaping opinions in the legal world, in the public eye, everywhere. And it is in this duality that this capacity for both sympathy and exploitation happen. This makes the media's role in her story so controversial and so deeply interwoven with the larger questions about her life and her death. Public reaction to Anna Nicole Smith's life and death. Of course, now it is deeply divided, reflecting the complex and often contradictory ways in which she was perceived by the different groups out there. From the start, Anna Nicole was a polarizing figure, someone who captivated people, repelled people. She inspired sympathy and scorn in equal measure. This complexity became even more pronounced after her death, as it does sometimes, right? Different segments of society, they weigh in now on what her life and her passing meant, and in a broader cultural context. In the immediate aftermath of her death, the public reaction was one of shock and confusion. News of her sudden passing at just 39 years old flooded social media platforms and all the online forums and news websites. Within hours, people were dissecting every aspect of her life, from her rise to fame as a Playboy model to her legal battles and personal struggles. On platforms like Twitter and Facebook, opinions were very sharply divided. Some users mourned her as a tragic figure, a woman who had been unfairly judged and exploited by the media and those around her. These voices highlighted her troubled childhood, the abusive relationship she had to endure, and the immense pressure she had to face as a public figure who was constantly scrutinized by the press. On the other side of the spectrum were those who felt little sympathy for Anna Nicole. To them, she was a woman who represented a life marked by very poor choices, marrying an elderly billionaire for money, number one, and then engaging in public displays of erratic behavior, and then allowing her life to become a reality TV spectacle. Comments on forums like Reddit and early online message boards like The Smoking Gun, they were often harsh, reflecting a belief that Anna Nicole had been the architect of her own downfall, saying that she lived by the tabloids and she died by them. These comments encapsulating a sentiment that was echoed by many who viewed her life as a cautionary tale of excess and self-destruction. Beyond the online chatter, cultural commentators and public figures, they also weighed in on the legacy of Anna Nicole Smith. Talk shows like The View, The Howard Stern Show, they dedicated entire episodes to discuss her life and death with different panelists, offering a wide range of opinions. Some, like co-host Rosie O'Donnell at the time, expressed deep sympathy, arguing that Anna Nicole was a victim of a misogynistic culture that took pleasure in her pain. Others, like conservative commentator Bill O'Reilly, he dismissed her as another example of celebrity excess, a product of culture that just rewards reckless behavior with fame and fortune. The public reaction was also colored by generational and demographic divides. Among younger audiences, particularly those who had grown up with reality TV, there was this sense of familiarity and even affection for Anna Nicole. Many saw her as a pioneer of the reality TV genre, someone who helped lay the groundwork for future stars who would use their personal lives as a form of entertainment. For these fans, she was flawed, but she was also endearing, a woman who wore her heart on her sleeve and whose struggles with addiction, mental health, and loss were relatable to many in a society increasingly aware of these issues. Conversely, older audiences and more conservative segments of society were less forgiving. To them, Anna Nicole was emblematic of a cultural decline, a shift away from traditional values toward a world where fame could be achieved without merit, simply just by being willing to air one's dirty laundry in public. What an idea! Religious and family focus groups, they were particularly critical, though, often framing her life, Anna's life, as a morality tale about the dangers of vanity and greed and moral compromise. This demographic, for sure, was less likely to view her as a victim and more likely to see her as a cautionary example of what happens when you stray too far from societal norms. International reactions, that added a whole other layer of complexity. In countries like the UK, Australia, and Canada, where tabloids had similar fervent interest in celebrity culture, the reaction was much like that of the United States. It was a mix of sympathy and criticism, along with fascination. However, in places where Anna Nicole was less of a household name, her death was met with bewilderment and curiosity. Media outlets in non-Western countries, they often portrayed Anna as a quintessential example of American excess. Because, that's what feeds everyone else's news, America's excess. It became a symbol, though, here, of the risks that come with the pursuit of fame at any cost in these other far-off places. This entire global reaction further highlighted the very different ways Anna's story was interpreted based on cultural context. And I bring that up because, again, a reminder, we're not just talking about Anna's death. We're talking about what was she doing at the time? Was she feeling the pressure of those around her? Was she willingly contributing to her demise? Was she under the influence of too many meds and the pressures to make any good choices? In each area of the world, and each individual seemed to have a very different opinion on that. I mean, interestingly, the reaction in the legal community, it was also split. It wasn't just the people. While some legal experts criticized the way Anna Nicole had been treated by the court system, particularly in her prolonged legal battles over J. Howard Marshall's estate, others suggested that her case highlighted the complexities and limitations of the legal system in dealing with high-profile cases. Legal analysts like Nancy Grace were very vocal in discussing the case's implications, often leaning toward the idea that Anna Nicole had been treated unfairly due to her gender and her celebrity status. But there's always that other side, the others, who felt that her relentless pursuit of Marshall's fortune, it just painted her in a negative light, someone who manipulated the legal system to her advantage. And then there were the discussions in the field of addiction and mental health overall, and we all know that ends up in a very sketchy place. Everyone has an opinion, it's very delicate, and at times, nobody knows what to do. Many professionals and advocacy groups saw Anna Nicole's death as an opportunity to highlight the often hidden struggles faced by those in the public eye. Organizations like the National Alliance on Mental Illness and the American Society of Addiction Medicine, they used her case to call for better support systems for celebrities who are dealing with mental health issues and substance abuse. This perspective offered a more compassionate view of Anna Nicole, and it urged the public to see her not just as a celebrity, but that she was a human being, and she was suffering from very complex issues that were often beyond her control. Ultimately, the public reaction to Anna Nicole Smith's life and death, it was a reflection of broader societal debates about fame and responsibility and the ethics of public fascination. Her story, this story, it forced people to confront uncomfortable questions, and nobody loves that. Was Anna a victim of those around her? Was she a pawn in a larger game? Or was she a willing participant, a woman who made her own choices knowing full well what the risks were? Well, the divided reaction globally speaks to the complexity of her narrative and the ways in which we as a society consume the lives of those in the spotlight. The death of Anna Nicole Smith sparked a wave of legal and ethical debates that extended far beyond any initial investigation and original court cases. At the heart of these discussions was the question of responsibility. Who, if anyone, was legally accountable for her death? The charges brought against Howard K. Stern and the two doctors, Dr. Christine Eshtovic and Dr. Sandeep Kapoor, opened a Pandora's box of legal arguments and ethical considerations that quickly captivated both the legal community and the general public. The prosecution argued that Stern and the doctors had acted in concert to supply Anna Nicole with excessive amounts of prescription drugs and that they knew full well that she was struggling with addiction. The case brought to light a series of disturbing practices: prescriptions written in false names, a bewildering array of medications being provided without any medical oversight, and a failure to adhere to established medical guidelines. Prosecutors framed Stern as an enabler and the doctors as complicit in her downfall, painting a picture of a woman surrounded by people who prioritized their interests over her well-being. Now, on the other side, the defense raised serious questions about the fairness and the validity of these charges. They argued that the prosecution was attempting to criminalize what amounted to medical decisions that were made by professionals in an effort to manage a complex patient with numerous legitimate health concerns. They claimed that Anna Nicole was a difficult and demanding patient who often sought multiple opinions, and that the doctors involved were simply trying to provide care within the parameters of their profession. Furthermore, Stern's defense team argued that he was being unfairly targeted because of his intimate relationship with Anna and his public persona, and they contended that Stern had no control over the prescriptions and was merely just doing his best to support a woman who was, by all accounts, in severe distress. These legal debates quickly spilled over into the broader ethical sphere, prompting a wider conversation about the responsibilities of those in positions of power and trust. Medical ethics experts began to weigh in, with many arguing that the doctors had violated their Hippocratic oath by prescribing medications in a manner inconsistent with establishing medical standards. However, others suggested that this case highlighted the difficulties inherent with treating high-profile clients, who often have these difficult needs and demands that don't really fit neatly into conventional medical practice. Was it ethical to treat a celebrity patient differently than any other patient? Or did their fame and the pressure associated with it necessitate a different approach? Similarly, discussions about Stern's role raised important questions about the ethics of relationships where there's a significant imbalance of power. Was Stern a devoted partner trying to help the woman he loved? Or was he using his position to manipulate and control her? The lines between love and control, support and exploitation, they became increasingly blurred here, reflecting a larger societal set of debates about the nature of dependency and autonomy. Ultimately, the legal cases against Stern and the doctors, they resulted in acquittals or dismissals of most charges. But the ethical question lingered, sparking debates that continue to resonate. The implications extended beyond the specifics of this case, challenging the legal and medical professionals to reconsider the frameworks they used when assessing responsibility, influence, and care in such high-profile situations. This case of Anna Nicole Smith, it serves as a powerful reflection of a broader issue across society, issues that go beyond the life and death of one woman, to touch on how society views fame and addiction and mental health and the responsibility of those who are in positions of influence. Anna Nicole's story forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth about how our culture consumes celebrities with a mixture of adoration and cruelty, sympathy and judgment. Her life was lived under the constant gaze of the media, a gaze that often seemed to revel in her missteps and suffering. Her death also brought to the forefront discussions about addiction and mental health, particularly the stigmas associated with them. Anna Nicole was often judged harshly for her struggles with drugs and erratic behavior, but her story has since been reconsidered in a light of more compassionate understanding of addiction as a disease rather than a moral failing. Advocacy groups have used her case to call for better mental health support for those in the public eye, emphasizing the need for systems that do not punish vulnerability, but instead offer help. Moreover, Anna Nicole's story, it's a case in the ethics of medical care for high-profile patients, and really anyone. But should doctors treat celebrities differently? Should anyone be treated differently? Celebrities, we know they live under unique pressures. Is that the reason? Should there be stricter regulations around the prescribing of meds to such individuals who are often more susceptible to addiction due to their lifestyles and the constant stress they endure? These questions continue to challenge medical ethics and influence discussions about how best to care for individuals whose lives are far from ordinary. At its core, the story of Anna Nicole Smith remains compelling, not just because of its inherent drama, but because it touches on deeper issues about human nature, responsibility, and the blurred lines between victim and agent in the lives of those who, for better or worse, live in the public eye. As we close this episode, I invite you to consider the facts, the arguments, and the controversies that we have explored here. Was Anna Nicole Smith a victim of those who surrounded her, manipulated and exploited by those who should have been there to protect her? Or was she a tragic figure who, despite the odds, made choices that led her down a dangerous path? Were Howard K. Stern and the doctors truly at fault? Or were they caught up in a story that had already spiraled out of control? These questions do not have easy answers. That's why this whole thing is still out there, and cases like this. These kinds of cases force us to think about the broader issues at play. The ways in which society views addiction, mental health, and fame, and the roles we all play in the stories that unfold around us. Ultimately, the case of Anna Nicole Smith, it's more than just a tabloid headline or a tragic death. It is a mirror that reflects our own values, our own judgments, and our own capacity for empathy or condemnation. Share your thoughts. Keep the conversation going. What do you think happened here? I'd love the feedback. Thank you for joining me here, this episode of True Crime, the Court of Public Opinion. Stay tuned, subscribe, get ready for our next case where we are going to continue to explore those blurred lines of justice, truth, and public perception. Thank you for joining in and being part of the conversation. Subscribe, check back, we always have more. Until next time, this is Alexis Knight.